deck profile. Today we have the Marincess deck. I know, we have a modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Amazing. We haven't had that in a while. We've just done Edison. So Marincess is actually the deck, as I try to adjust the camera, is the deck that I was using back when I was playing modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's honestly one of the favorite decks I've ever played. So I'm excited to get into it. It is a heavy control deck. It's not as like hardcore as a few others. It doesn't use, at least in my build, a lot of the really big things like Zeus, Baron de Fleur, things like that. It's more of a straightforward Marincess deck, in my opinion. So let's get into it. We're going to start out with explaining it. Like I said, this is mostly a control deck. It exists to combo and then halt the opponent from doing what they need to do by negating effects. So it's not as much as destruction as a lot of decks are. It's more, I'm not going to let you activate your effects, and then I'm going to bounce things back to your hand. A lot of people forget about how really good bouncing really is because it gets around a lot of negate effects. So just to explain quickly what bouncing is when you send a card back to the hand from the field, not to be confused with spinning, which is sending a card back to the deck. All right, so let's get started. So this is a Link deck. Links were, of course, released with Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, and they are summoned by sending the correct monster from the field to the graveyard. It's not a tribute. It's a little similar to synchro summoning, where the monster is actually sent. It's not tributed. It's not destroyed. It's straight up sent. And hello, Kiva. I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. I am really glad you're here to see us today. I know you said you like deck videos, so we got another one for you. Now, I've been given a bit of teasing for this deck because it's a pretty princess pop girl deck. I don't care. To put it bluntly, in the way I told somebody who made fun of me for it, look, I am secure enough in my masculinity to be able to play the Pretty Princess deck, and the Pretty Princess deck just whooped your butt, so I'm going to keep using it. So the way I run this deck, it runs 13 links in the extra deck and 2 Xyz monsters. We're going to get into why at that point. So starting out in the extra deck, we have a couple copies of Marincess Blue Slug. So this is one of the first monsters I'm going to summon. The way that the combo works in this deck is you start out with one monster, and then you just keep building up, summoning other Marincess main deck monsters, and linking away to summon more of the big ones. So this is our Link 1 Blue Slug. It requires a level 4 or lower Marincess monster, 1,500 attack points, and a downward pointing arrow. If this card is Link summoned, you can target one Marincess monster in your graveyard, except Blue Slug, add it to your hand, but you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for water monsters. You can only Link summon one of these cards once per turn. This is usually the second card that I play. The first one is our other Link one, Marincess Sea Angel. So Sea Angel is another Link one, 1,000 attack points, a left-facing arrow. So when this card is summoned, it's also a level 4 lower Marincess monster. You add one Marincess spell from your deck to your hand. You can only Link summon one per turn. And honestly, Kiva, I usually do end up liking the Pretty Princess pop decks because they end up usually being really fun. Like this deck, I really enjoyed Magician Girls for a while. When it came to Vanguard, I really enjoyed the aesthetic of Bermuda Triangle and Lyrical Monasterio. They're just fun decks with great combos. So Sea Angel is what's going to be important for getting out our most important 2 spells in the deck, which we're going to get to. So moving on to our link 2, one of the most important links you're going to make in this deck is Marincess Coral Anemone, a left and downward facing arrow, link 2 at 2,000 attack points. This requires 2 water monsters. So this does free you up to be able to use main deck monsters that aren't Marincess, which we actually do run 2 or 3 copies of a non-Marincess monster. That's really important. So you can target one water monster with 1,500 attack points or less in your graveyard, which is every main deck monster, by the way. You can special summon it to a zone this card points to, but you can't special summon the rest of the turn except water monsters. Not a problem. Every card in this deck is a water monster. I am not getting locked. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, and that does include link summoning, by the way, you can target one Marincess card in your graveyard, and notice it says card, not monster. So this will get you back any card. Except for an enemy, and add it to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. So that's honestly really interesting. This is a card you're going to make a lot. You're going to cycle it back to the deck a lot because it's really important. It's also a link 2. And just to point out for those who are new to links, even so many years after they've come out, because a lot of people didn't want to use them, myself included. But, you know, this deck I really do appreciate. So this is the only link deck I use. Although I did have fun with Goki for a while. So whatever link a card is, like I said, this card is link 2. It can either count as 1 link in the chain or it can count as 2. So if I had these 2 on the field, I can either summon a link 2 using both of them. I can make this link 2, this a link 1, make a link 3, or I can use them both as link 2 to summon a link 4. So it really is versatile. Once you start pumping out your monsters, you can do a lot. So the next card we have here is Marincess Crystal Heart. In the original iteration of the Marincess deck, this was one of the most important cards. It's still incredibly important. I still use 1 copy of it. I'm going to focus it down a little bit more. There we go. I'm sorry, I'm still always trying to figure out the camera angle. So Crystal Heart is a link to 2 bottom-facing arrows. 2 water monsters. It's unaffected by your opponent's monster effects while in the extra monster zone. Remember, extra monster zone was added in with Vrains. There are 2 extra monster zones, 1 for you, 1 for your opponent. So during the damage step of this card battles an opponent's monster, that monster is unaffected by card effects except its own, which that effect we're really not going to use. The effect that we're actually going to use is in conjunction with the field spell, which we're going to get into. When this card or your Marincess link monster this card points to is targeted for an attack, you can send a Marincess from the hand to the graveyard. For that battle, your monster cannot be destroyed, take no battle damage. So this can be a good stall card. But like I said, when we get to the field spell, you're going to see where its true power lies. Next, we do run a copy of Splash Mage. Takes 2 Cyberse monsters. Now, every Marincess is a Cyberse monster. So this really splashable, and that's every pun intended, link is fantastic. And it is a water monster. It's got an upward right-facing arrow and a bottom right-facing arrow. So you can target a Cyberse monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position and negate the effects, and you're locked into Cyberse for the rest of the turn. So this is a good monster recycler. This helps you get things back out. So Splash Mage is a great card to run 1 of. Moving on to the link 3s, we have a couple copies of Marincess Marbled Rock, or as I call, Jotaro! Because, let's be honest, she looks like a JoJo character, and I am here for it, because I am a JoJo stan! We don't talk about Part 8. So this is 2+ water monsters. You can target one Marincess monster in your graveyard, or Marincess card, sorry, and add it to your hand once per turn. So this is one of the biggest recyclers in the deck. This is the easiest recycler to use. This card does work. There's a reason why there's 2 of them. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can send a Marincess monster, and again, halts battle damage and stop cards from being destroying. Marbled Rock is a card you're going to play a lot in this deck, and she has won me so many games. I honestly was terrifying with this deck. Even when I lost in locals, I scared them. So I love this card. I love this deck. Next, we also have 1 copy of Marincess Coral Triangle, 2+ Marincess monsters, another link 3. You can send a water monster from your hand to the graveyard, add a Marincess trap from deck to hand. So this is a one-of in the deck because it lets you search out your most important trap in Marincess Wave, which we're going to get into when we reach the trap card section. You can also banish this card from your graveyard, special summon water link monsters from your graveyard, whose combined link radius equal exactly 3. So if she's in your graveyard already, you can use her to bust out some links and turn the tide of the battle. It's really fantastic. You can also cannot special summon monsters except for water monsters the turn you activate these effects. Again, we're fine. We're locked into either Cyberse or water, and quite honestly, either one is fine. Moving on to link 4, we have Marincess Great Bubble Reef. So this is a really cool card that I use a lot of. Although it's not the first link 4 out of 2 that I'm going to make. This is the one I make second. Because this is a great card, but it's not the boss monster of the deck. So 2+ water monster. It's got 2,600 attack points, so it's a good beater. Once per turn during each standby phase, yours and your opponent's, you can banish a water monster from the graveyard or face up in the field. And each time a monster, you draw 1 card. Each time a monster is banished face up, this card gains 600 attack points for each until the end of the turn. So there's a lot of cards with banish effects in this deck. So you can really combo off for a fantastic beat stick using Bubble Reef. You can also send 1 water monster from your hand to the graveyard, special summon one of your banished Marincess monsters. So another recycler. A lot of this deck is recycling. I will be honest, when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh!, my greatest weakness is that I do tend to overextend, and I do tend to exhaust my resources. This deck recycles my resources like it's a Fortune 500 engine. So I absolutely love this deck. It is very well suited to me. Finally, we're moving on to the boss monster of the deck, Marincess Aqua Argonaut. This card, you only run 1 of it, and 1 is all you need. This card. So, yeah, it only says 2,300 attack points, but that don't matter. It gets bigger. When this card is in the extra monster zone, your opponent's monsters cannot attack any monsters except this card. So this thing directs all attacks to it as long as it's in the extra monster zone, which is the only place I'm putting it. You can only use each of the following effects of Aqua Argonaut once per turn. You can target 1 water monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, bounce them both back to the hand. During your opponent's turn, when a spell or trap card or effect is activated on the field, you can special summon 1 Marincess card equipped to this card and negate the effect. So this is a negator, this is a bouncer, and this is an attack director. So Aqua Argonaut is an incredibly powerful card, and you're right, Kiva, it is dangerous. To the point where people groaned when I brought it out. Plus, the artwork is fantastic. Next, we're moving on to the 2 Xyz we have in the deck. We have number 4 Stealth Kraken. This is made from 2 level 4 water monsters. All face-up monsters on the field become water. This becomes important. Once per turn during the main phase, quick effect, and that is anyone's main phase, you can destroy a water monster your opponent controls and inflict damage equal half the attack on the field. If this card that was Xyz summoned is destroyed, you can special summon Stealth Kraken spawns from your extra deck up to the numbers of materials this card had, and then attach up to one water monster from your graveyard to each of those special summoned monsters. So this thing, any decks that require a certain attribute, this shuts down because it makes everything water. And then you can just blow things up as you wish. So it's really cool. So the Stealth Kraken spawn, we never actually make this by Xyz summoning. We make it by, having our Kraken destroyed. But it's 2 level 4 water monsters. Once per turn during the main phase, you can destroy a water monster your opponent controls. If this card, special summoned by the effect of a number of Xyz monsters destroyed, you can special summon other Stealth Kraken monsters from your graveyard up to the number of materials this card has, and then attach 1 water monster from your graveyard to each of those special summoned monsters. So if Kraken blows up, we get Spawn. If Spawn blows up, we get Kraken back. So that's honestly incredible. That's going to do a lot for us. Next, let's move into the main deck monsters. Starting out with perhaps the most important monster on the deck, we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang. 1,500 attack point, 1,200 defense point, level 4 monster. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a Marincess monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Blue Tang. Now, you might be wondering, why are there so many effects that send things to the graveyard? That's because, like I said, the recycling in this deck is insane. So the graveyard is an extension of your hand, just how I like it, because I am a massive toolbox player when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! So if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for the link summon of a water monster, excavate the top 3 cards of your deck. If you do, add 1 excavated Marincess card to your hand, shuffle the rest in the deck. Can only activate each effect once per turn. So this not only will act as a foolish burial for you, but it will also let you add cards from your deck to the hand. So Blue Tang is a card you want to be summoning really every turn. Next, we have 3 copies of Marincess Pascalis. Another level 4 monster, 1,200 attack, 2,000 defense. If this is a normal or special summoned, you're going to special summon 1 Marincess from your hand in defense position, except Pascalis. So this and Blue Tang are your main combo in the deck. Use Pascalis to summon Blue Tang. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this from your graveyard and then target a Marincess spell trap in your graveyard added to your hand. So this can also work off with Bubble Reef. This can add your field spell back, your Marincess dive back, your Marincess wave. So this is a really important card. Next, we have 3 copies of Marincess Seahorse. 1,400 attack, 1,000 defense, level 3. You can special summon this card from your hand to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to. So this is a free special summon once per turn. During your main phase, except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card, special summon 1 modern monster from your hand to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to. So this is your special summon generator when you don't have Pascalis. So Seahorse, it's amazing. And really, it's a fantastic combo extender. Honestly, the combo potential of this deck, I once beat a Danger deck with only a Blue Tang in my hand. Because I was coming from behind, I drew the Blue Tang, only card in my hand. No, it wasn't a Danger deck. They hit me with, what's that? Final Destiny, I think. It's a card that banished, I think, all the monster cards in my deck and graveyard, and I brought it back with a Tang because there were other ways I could do things. I just started linking off using the Tang and bringing it back. It was glorious. So we're looking at Marincess Mandarin next, 3 copies. This is a level 1, 100 attack and defense. If you control 2 or more Marincess monsters while this card is in your hand in your graveyard, you can target 1 Water Link monster you control, special summon this card to a zone it points to, but banish it when it leaves the field. So this is purely a combo extender. Summon it out, get another link off. It's really incredible. Next, we have 3 copies of Marincess Basso La Lima. Level 4, attack, 2100 defense. If a monster you control be destroyed by card effect, monster or monsters, by the way, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. And you can only use each of the effects once per turn. You can banish a Marincess trap from your graveyard, add one Marincess trap with a different name to protect your hand. I don't really use that, honestly. If this card is banished, you can target one face-up monster on the field and gain 600 attack points. So that second ability will combo off the first. So this saves your mind in a level 500 attack, 2500 defense. This can work as a good blocker if you need to, if you don't have other options. But you can also target a Marincess monster you control and special summon this card from your hand. While this card is in your monster zone, the targeted card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You can also banish this monster from your graveyard. Target a Marincess Link monster you control. Equip it with a Marincess Link monster from your graveyard. So this is also a great refresher for Aqua Argonaut. A lot of banishing effects, a lot of milling effects, a lot of effects are going to hit the graveyard in banishment. Really interesting deck. Lastly, we have 3 copies of Silent Sea Nettle. This is our only non-Marincess monster in the deck besides Splash Mage and Kragan. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot special summon monsters except water for the turn you activate this effect, so water locks this. You can also banish this monster from your graveyard, target up to 3 water monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them back into the deck. So this will help extend your deck life and will also work as a combo extender. So honestly, fantastic card, really useful. And I say run 3 because you're going to use it. So moving on to spells. First off, we have a couple copies of the field spell, Marincess Battle Ocean. So this card is kind of this is the main powerhouse of the deck. This is what links all of your combos together. All Marincess monsters you control gain 200 attack points. Also, each one gains 600 attack points for each Marincess card equipped to it. So this is how you can boost your monsters for a beatdown strategy. Also, when you use with Aqua Argonaut, it gets it up to like 4,300 attack points, and I love it. Monsters you control in the extra monster zone that were link summoned using Crystal Heart as material are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. So this brings out the main thing in the extra deck where we want to use Crystal Heart as our link material for Aqua Argonaut, so it can be unaffected by card effects. So we want to use Crystal Heart as our link material. And we combo off of this also by when you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, you can equip up to 3 Marincess link monsters with different names from your graveyard to that link summoned monster. This brings out another combo. Make sure one of those monsters is Coral Anemone, so that when you're using Argonaut's negation ability, you can use Coral Anemone's ability to summon things back and do some cycling. The next really important card in the deck is, again, one of the most important spells in this deck. We have 2 copies of Marincess Dive. So you can activate one of these 2 effects, and it does water lock you. And you can only activate Dive once per turn. You can target, so this is a monster reborn for Marincess monsters. And if Battle Ocean is in your field zone, you can special summon 1 Marincess monster from your deck. So this is a tutor, and this is a monster reborn. This is really important. So when we summon Sea Angel in the first turn, we're either going to grab Battle Ocean or Dive, depending on what we draw. And then the next turn, we're going to get the other card that we don't have the copy of yet. So first turn, you're either searching out Dive or you're searching out Battle Ocean. Those are the cards you are looking for. Ideally, you'll start the game with a Battle Ocean and a Dive in your hand. Next, because this is a water deck, we have our Salvage. We have 2 copies. Add 2 water monsters with an attack of 1,500 or less from your graveyard to your hand. This will get every main deck monster back in your hand from the graveyard. So running 2 copies of Salvage is absolutely critical for this deck. Like I said, recycling is your friend. Next, I do have a copy of Raigeki. For obvious reasons, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. We have a copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, again, for obvious reasons, to clear that back row. Obviously, I've not looked at the ban list in a while. If anything has actually changed from the time I built this deck, I apologize. I honestly don't know. I do run a copy of Dark Ruler and more, just in case they've got a field lock situation. And I do have a copy of Cosmic Cyclone, but I could be convinced to change that for something else. Next, moving on to the traps. As I said, there is a trap in this deck that is the most important trap in this deck. You are going to be using it pretty much every turn. And I am talking about your 3 copies of Marincess Wave. So this is a card that's unique because it can either be played from your hand or from your spell and trap card zone, depending on the situation. If you control a Marincess Link monster, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, negate that monster's effects until the end of the turn. If you control a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster, all face-up monsters you currently control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of the turn. If you control a Link 3 or higher Marincess, you can activate this card from your hand. So this is a card I keep in my hand. I do not put it on the field unless I have to, because that way my opponent has a harder time touching it. So you can easily reach Marincess Aqua Argonaut first turn as long as your combos are not interrupted. So you'll already have the appropriate Link on the field. And I'd also like to point out this is a Marincess card. So cards like, So cards like Marbled Rock can recycle it. I honestly use this card probably a good 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a match. Like, this is a card I'm using pretty much every turn. And it's amazing. Next, we have a couple copies of a personal favorite of mine, Lost Wind. You can target a special summon monster in the field and negate its effects, and its original attack is halved permanently. So let's say they just summon their Blue Eyes. Oop! Now it's got 1,500 attack points. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card is in the graveyard, you can set this card to the field but banish it when it leaves. So ideally, you can use these 2 copies of Lost Wind a total of 4 times in the match. Like I said, there's a lot of effect negation in this deck, which is why people have so much trouble with it, because also I'm a jerk. Next, we have an interesting card called Ice Barrier. I like this card. So when an attack is declared involving an opponent's monster, you can change that monster's attack to 0, negate its effects. Also, it cannot change its battle position. I'd like to point out that does not say until the end of the turn. This is another permanent effect. Also, I'd like to point out that the wording does not state when the opponent declares an attack. It just says when the attack is declared involving your opponent's monster. You can activate this on your attack as well. You can also banish this card from your graveyard, send a level 5 or higher water monster from your deck to the graveyard, and add a water monster from your graveyard to your hand, and it does water lock you. You can only use this effect of Ice Barrier once per turn. So if you send Sleepy Maiden from deck to graveyard, you can recycle any card you want from your graveyard. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're running 2 Ice Barriers because this trap is just way too good not to use. And I have ended games with that trap. Next, we have 1 copy of Marincess Bubble Ring. When a monster declares an attack, you can negate the attack, and if you do, special summon a Crystal Heart from your deck or graveyard. This can be very useful to break out your Crystal Heart to be able to summon Argonaut if you're having trouble getting the materials. You can also banish this card from your graveyard, target a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster you control, and it can attack a number of times equal to its link rating during each battle phase of the turn. And your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving this card. So this can be used to clear out the field of opponent's monsters and then try to attack for game using that. Like swing with your Aqua Argonaut 4 times, clear out the monsters with its 4,300 attack points or more if you have another link monster attached to it. With 5 in the field, you can have a total of, 600 times 5. I believe that's 3,500 plus 200, 3,700. So that means total you could get 6,000 attack points, I believe, off of a fully powered Aqua Argonaut. That can clear out the field pretty well. So that's another potentially game-ending card. This deck has a lot of them. And last, we have Marincess Circulation. Target a link monster you control, water link monster, return it to the extra deck, and summon one with the same link rating but a different name. It cannot attack directly or be destroyed by battle this turn. If you control a link 3 or higher Marincess monster, you can activate this from your hand. So let's say they get rid of your field spell, and you've still got Bubble Reef in your extra deck. Use this to send your Aqua Argonaut back to the extra deck, summon Bubble Reef, it's safe, and then the next turn, get back your field spell and summon Aqua Argonaut out again. It's honestly a great thing. This card, again, I use it as a one-of, but again, has the potential to really shift how the game is going. So all in all, this deck it's a very technical deck, and you do need to be thinking a lot when you're playing it. I'm not saying you've got to be a genius to use this deck, but it does require you to think about your moves. And the biggest weakness of it is the fact that it's a combo-reliant deck. So if they knock out a chain in your combo, you may be done for the turn. Quite honestly, that is the weakness of the deck. It's happened to me before. I have lost games because they knocked out my chain, and there was nothing I could do about it. All in all, this is one of the coolest decks I've played. This is one of the strongest decks I've ever played. I really enjoy it. It is one of the only modern decks that I still really enjoy besides Shiranui. Shiranui, Dragon Maid. There's not a lot of modern decks I'm really feeling because I don't really enjoy modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Very much. I am mostly an Edison player, as you know. But if I go back to modern Yu-Gi-Oh! At any time, this is the deck I'm using. I would, of course, update it to fit the times because I'm sure new things have come out to make it even more interesting. But like I said, this is a really good deck. It's also a very budget-friendly deck. You can build it incredibly cheaply. I think I spent less than $20 for this deck. Hell, I think the sleeves are more expensive than the deck. And people are able to trade it to me pretty easily. This is an easy deck to kind of learn, but it's a difficult deck to master. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts you have to think about. You have to think about what resource do you need back at what time. And you have to learn how to recognize threats because you don't want to get bluffed. If you use up your waves and your Argonauts and your negates, and then that was just the bluff, you're kind of hurting a little bit. But the Marincess Wave does give you a good blanket protection effect, and it really does make the deck viable in just about any format. And again, it's one of the coolest decks I've ever played. I love the artwork. I love the play style. It absolutely suits me. I think out of all the decks I've played, this deck suits my play style for Yu-Gi-Oh! Just about the best. And it is one I suggest to new players, moderate players, and veteran players alike. So this has been my Marincess deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you've grown to love this deck as much as I love it. And like I said, you can pick this deck up pretty easily for yourself. It is not difficult. You can easily find the cards on TCG Player. And like I said, if you just buy all the common versions, it is very cheap. Like the most expensive thing in the deck is Marincess Dive. It was $10 when I got it. You know what? Let me see. Just because I'm curious. It has dropped to $5, so that is pretty much the most expensive card in the deck. It's really not bad. And it's something, honestly, it's something that I suggest for anyone to pick up. I'm looking up the prices again just to make sure. And yeah, the card's cheap. Now, Marincess Spring Girl is another card you could play, as well as Marincess Wonderheart. They're not as important in this build. I used the cards I thought were important, and I think it turned out pretty well. Like I said, I've turned this into a very terrifying deck. It's won me a lot of games, and I really don't have any complaints about it. Now, my opponents do. Okay, so the blue Tang might actually be worth something. That's like a $7, $8 card. Just taking a look just to make sure. Okay, no, you can still get the super rare for less than $1, or the common for like 10 cents. So that's fine. Also taking a quick look, see if there's any new cards that came out. Oh, Marincess Seahorse Starlight Rare is like $270. So we're going to avoid that like the plague. So, like I said, if you're interested in Yu-Gi-Oh!, this is a great deck to pick up. It's a fantastic deck to learn links with, because I believe this deck is kind of like the personification of what a link deck really is. And it's just really cool. So that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Probably going to do a Shiranui deck profile maybe tomorrow or Saturday, just to put that out there for you guys to enjoy. Until next time, this has been your Wintry Neighborhood Winter Spell, reminding you all to stay frosty, and I'll see you in the next video.